Hey Rachel, how's it going?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Appreciate you hopping in.
Yeah, no problem.
So basically, we're gonna let as many people in by 7-ish to join, start the recording. I've got a presentation, and basically in that presentation, in the first couple slides, I'll introduce role and introduce you, and then kind of let you do a quick spiel about the app and
Sounds
everything, and
great.
that'll kind of be it. And then we can kind of direct them towards your site and also, um, to that download the app and start exploring after that. So pretty
Perfect.
simple.
Are most of people on this call from all over the country or?
Yeah, it'll be anyone basically traveling to the tournament from all over. So
Awesome. Great.
it's also going to be recorded. What's recording now? Uh, that and will be shared as well for those who couldn't join. So
Sounds good.
yeah, so feel free to go off video until I address you.
Perfect. I sure will.
Appreciate it.
I've not been on Teams before, so I gotta figure out where everything is. Here we go.
True. Jason, how's it going, man?
Good, bud. How you doing?
Good, man. Appreciate you joining in.
No problem.
Just told Rachel the same thing because we're introducing role on there that basically we'll kind of have a slide for you and Allianz, and then we'll introduce you and let you kind of do your
Do my
thing.
spiel.
Yep.
Yeah, no
Yeah.
problem.
What's up, Gerald?
What's up, man? How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I think I don't have a specific slide for Richmond Region Tourism, but I'll introduce you towards the beginning, just as like partner in crime. Been at it since day one. Basically intertwined with Sportable as the LOC for the event, and let you talk about Richmond Region Tourism and your role. But feel free to keep it short and sweet as you'd like.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
And y'all are welcome to go off mic and off video in the meantime until we get started, or you can stay on, whatever. Brandon, I'm gonna let you chime in here and let me know if you're gonna be sharing the presentation or if I should. Um, and you're on mute. You're on mute. There.
Delaying. I was just gonna say I'll get on video quick and then I'll jump off, make sure I'm not delaying when I'm driving the presentation. So
Okay.
I tried to turn off bypass the lobby and it's not like saving it. I have to knit everyone individually.
And confirm you're gonna pull it up, or do you want me to pull it up?
Yeah, I got it here.
Okay. Thank you.
Is it showing good for us?
Yeah, looks good, and hopefully everyone's forgiving of my PowerPoint design skills. I created this today because a lot of the information's been time sensitive, and it's mostly about the information and not how it's presented. If you feel me.
Not at all. Look how far you've come.
Forrest, you think you're ready to go? You've been given 5 minutes. I feel like start things up.
Yeah, I'm ready when you are. Let me know if you
Okay.
have any intro or if I should get right into it.
Cool. Yeah. Hey everyone, Brandon McBain with the NWBA. Pleasure to introduce in a second our webinar presenter this evening. Just a couple of housekeeping. If you could stay on mute while the presentation is going. Forrest and a few of our guests and valued partners are going to be speaking throughout the presentation. So rather than kind of break things up, we refer you to use the chat to ask questions. And then at the end, I think we can, take the opportunity for more Q&A where you could maybe unmute yourself at that time, but just with the flow of the presentation and allow Forrest and their group to get through all of the information. If you could remain on mute and then hopefully the questions are answered later in the presentation. But without further ado, I'd like to introduce Forrest Lodge, Director of Strategic Partnerships and lead for the local organizing committee, Sportable, for the adult and junior national championships. So.
Awesome. Thank you, Brandon. Good evening, everyone. Appreciate all of you that are joining, and for those of you who are watching this recording later on. We are, over the moon excited about hosting you all in April. And it's crazy to believe it's under a month away for juniors and just a little bit, basically a month away for adults. It's been a labor of love over the last year and some change planning this event. And we've been putting in a lot of work to make it an unforgettable experience. So a lot of that involves travel, and a lot of your experience involves travel and getting to Richmond. And so a lot of this content will be focused on travel and what we're doing to hopefully make that as efficient and uneventful and enjoyable as possible for those of you. And a lot of that will focus on those of you who are traveling via air travel, just to provide a little tidbit there for those of you who might be driving. But definitely an interesting conversation and may be applicable to those of you who are flying in the future to other tournaments and whatnot with sports equipment. So before I get into it and before I hit the agenda, I just wanted to introduce you guys to Gerald Taylor from our local partner, Richmond Region Tourism. Gerald has been with us every step of the way throughout the process, and was even with me in Wichita at last year's Nationals, behind the scenes, kind of learning and living and breathing this event. And so I just wanted to give him an opportunity to speak on behalf of Richmond Region Tourism before we get into the presentation.
Thanks, Forrest. Good afternoon, everyone. I appreciate you all hopping on. Like Forrest mentioned, we've done a lot of planning, a lot of work on bringing this event to Richmond and making it eventful for everybody. I'm the sports sales and event manager for Richmond Region Tourism. So basically my job and title is to kind of, like Forrest mentioned, go out to these events and recruit them and bring them in town. And then we partner sometimes with our local community to help run these great events. We had the perfect opportunity to partner with Sportable and work with them and kind of make this event great for everyone. Based on all the work we've done, I know you all will have a great time. And again, thanks, and look forward to seeing you guys.
Awesome. Thanks, Gerald. And another shout out to our partners with Henrico as well, where the facilities is located for the event. The Henrico Sports and Event Centers have played a big role in us being able to bring this event to Richmond for you guys. So wanted to give them a shout out as well. We can move on to the next slide. Awesome. So this is just a little bit of a snapshot of the agenda for the evening. One quick edit that I don't think made it into my final edit of the presentation. Role Mobility intro with Rachel from Team Role Mobility will be immediately following the Allianz introduction. For those of you who may not have seen this yet, Allianz Partners is the travel sponsor for the National Wheelchair Basketball National Championships of the Adult and Junior National Championships here in Richmond. So I've got Jason Dash from the Allianz Partners team joining us tonight. Role Mobility is an awesome app for the wheelchair and disability community that you'll learn about immediately following the Allianz intro. With Rachel from Team Role Mobility, will be giving you a little bit more feedback on that. Then we'll go through our travel form submissions. Special shout out to all of you guys who have sent in your travel forms for hotel and flight information. We'll kind of go over that process, what that looks like, and kind of the importance of those forms. Then we'll go into the airport operations plan, which is the nitty-gritty process that we've been kind of working on here, like on the ground at Richmond International Airport, with airport staff, TSA staff, airline manager staff of all the major airlines, and kind of go into what our plans are for that and how we're going to, basically handle arrivals and departures. We'll also talk about equipment drop off and load out, basically at the venue. So those of you who are driving, especially those who carry like trailers full of equipment and want to know where the drop off and load out locations will be, we'll kind of talk about that, and it also impacts the arrivals and departures for flights. Then we'll get into the awesome addition this year of Amazon equipment transportation for those of you who are flying in and out of Richmond International Airport on the Thursdays and Sundays of each event weekend, and then we'll get into some Q&A towards the end, where I'm sure there will be some questions, but yeah, that's the majority of what we'll get through throughout the agenda. So with that being said, I'd like to turn it over to Jason Dash from Allianz Partners. He's based locally here in Richmond, Virginia. He's been with Allianz for a while within his career. Huge internal advocate for us at Allianz for Sportable, and he'll tell you a little bit more about Allianz, his involvement with the event, and his connection to adaptive sports. Jason, next slide.
Hello, everybody, and thanks for having me today, Forrest. So I think it was around November, Forrest and a few of his colleagues met one of my colleagues for lunch, and they started pitching us on this National Wheelchair Basketball Championship. And I know when I left with my colleague, we were driving back to the office and we had chills. We were super excited. And then we said, well, how are we going to pitch this internally, and how are we actually going to make this come to fruition? And we hit on three key things that Allianz likes to focus on that we think this event hits on without a doubt. The first is health and wellness. The second is opening up opportunities for all within our communities. And the third, which is a huge one for us at Allianz, it's uniting and empowering people around the globe. We want to bring people together and we want to empower them to do great things. And what better way than supporting sports and competition? To us at Allianz, sports and competition is sort of the gateway to health and wellness, to opening up opportunities that people didn't know were out there, and to uniting and empowering people. I think if you ever went to a sporting event, people talk to strangers. People fall in love with strangers. You make friends forever, and that's what we hope to happen at this event. You'll see Allianz Partners and Allianz as a whole involved in a lot of this stuff. Just as an example on how we love to support sports and competition. Locally, we are the lead sponsor for the Richmond Marathon for the next few years. We have an 8-year relationship with the Olympics and the Paralympics. You're going to see our logo basically everywhere, starting this summer in Paris, And now we get to add the National Wheelchair Basketball Championships to our portfolio. And we really couldn't be more excited. So on behalf of myself and my colleagues, we look forward to meeting you guys at the airport. We look forward to helping you with your luggage, providing you baggage tags. I know Forrest is going to get into all of that later, but this is a really exciting opportunity for us. And for me personally, it's even more exciting. I've had a connection with Sportable now for almost 6 years. My son Max is an adaptive athlete. He's an 11-year-old boy who has spinal muscular atrophy. It is a form of muscular dystrophy. And we found out about Sportable through our PT. Max always wanted to get involved in sports. I didn't know how to get him involved in sports. She threw me a Sportable flyer one day, and the rest is history. Forrest and Hunter and Katie and everyone who works at Sportable has really helped transform my son's life, give him confidence, learn what it means to be part of a team, and has really empowered us to look at his disability in a different way. So as a member of Allianz, I'm super thrilled to be a part of the travel sponsorship. But personally, I cannot wait to bring my son to the games. At least the first weekend. We don't know if we're going to be able to make it the second weekend and watch him play. He asks me every week, "Are we going to go watch those basketball players soon?" So that's all I have for now. But again, I'm humbled to be a part of this, and thank you, Forrest.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jason, and thank you to Team Allianz Partners for supporting this event. Can move to the next slide. Now I'd like to introduce Rachel, and apologies if I butcher your last name because I don't think I've ever said it or heard it said, but Rachel Zoller from Roll Mobility is here, and I'd love to give the floor over to her to talk more about the awesome app that Roll is and everything you need to know about it.
Awesome. Thanks, Forrest, for the intro. It's dollar. It rhymes with dollar, holler.
Holler.
Now,
Dang
now
it.
you'll never forget. Thanks for the intro and thanks for the invite to help support this really awesome event. We couldn't be more excited to be here. A little bit more about Roll Mobility. We're a community-driven accessibility tool that provides answers to accessibility questions. With our reliable rating scale, you can get and share detailed information about accessibility, including photo and video uploads about any type of location. We know when you're traveling and as a chair user that there can be a lot of anxiety about finding out new places or trying to save energy for, I don't know, playing basketball instead of trying to find out where you can eat. So we hope to ease everybody traveling with the NWBA to Richmond by getting as much information on our map for you. We hope that between now and then, you'll go ahead and download our app and start using it in your own communities. And then when you're in Richmond, use it and let us know how you like it. We're working with brand ambassadors to front load as much data as we can to make your ease of travel a great experience while we're there. Additionally, we've got already live, I just checked it before this call, we've got all the information about the event and the event locations and links to the entire schedule of the events while you are traveling in Richmond. So we hope that you'll use it and that you like it. You can always give us feedback at info or support at rollmobility.com. And we hope that you'll take the app back home with you and use it in your own communities. So then next time somebody's coming to travel to where you live, that you've made it easier for them too.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Rachel. Appreciate you being on and for being, part of this event and just kind of part of pushing this initiative forward. I think it's an awesome tool, and we're very, very excited to get more content uploaded in the Richmond community in Central Virginia. This event will, I think, do a lot for that. But definitely encourage all of you guys, like she said, to go ahead and download it and start using it and check it out. If you download it and you kind of go over to the map into the Richmond, Virginia area, you will see some of those things that have already been uploaded by Team Roll about the championships and the different ancillary events. And like she said, we're going to be working locally in the next couple of weeks to try and get some more reviews in those hotspot areas to allow for you to see, what's out there instead of having to do a lot of digging and a lot of phone calls and all that kind of stuff. But know that this is new, and we want you guys to use it even at places that aren't yet reviewed on the app, and still start to build that network of information that's for the greater good of the community, and just providing that information. So definitely encourage you guys to go ahead and download the app, and then be on the lookout for any social content potentially coming out too, that's kind of highlighting the functionality of the app and the usage of it during the game. So thanks again, Rachel. Appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Forrest. We're so excited to be a part of it.
All right. Take care. Thank you. All right, Brandon, you can go to the next slide. All right. So now we're going to get into the nitty gritty of the travel pieces of the presentation that very, very distinctly pertain to team travel and the different things that we're doing to impact and hopefully help your travel experience. So as all of you have probably seen through emails from me on the Nationals website and other avenues, we have a travel information form, which is linked here. That tracks hotel information, which is important for the state of play protocols with this event. And it also tracks flight itinerary information. So before we look at the actual form itself as like a screen share, I just wanted to hit on these main bullet points. The deadline to submit this is Friday, March 15th, which is this Friday. It's really, really important for our stakeholders at the hotels and also with the airport and airlines that we have this information available as early as possible, hence the March 15th deadline. We also wanted to make sure that all of you teams who may have been waiting to find out about your status for nationals, know that you're coming before we set a deadline for this. So it is a little bit of a quick turnaround if you haven't booked your reservations for hotels or flights yet, or have just recently done so. But it's very, very important that you submit that information by Friday. It's like, got a question from Alex in the chat. It's totally open for individuals to fill it out, like a parent or an adult athlete themselves, or for the team rep to collect the information and submit it all together. I will say it's easier for us on our end to track if it comes in all together. But if that is not attainable or not as efficient for your team, those individuals can submit it individually. What I would like from a team rep is to give me at least a list of names of team members that are traveling with your team that you know of, so that we can check off as any individual forms come through. That would definitely be very helpful, and we can make sure to follow up with that information after the webinar. It's important to complete it with full and accurate information. So if you don't have certain flight numbers or connection numbers or flight arrival times or departure times yet, please refrain from filling out the form, because it doesn't really serve the purpose if you don't have that information in there. So please make sure it's complete fully and accurately. For everyone's awareness, if you haven't reserved your hotels yet, for the junior weekend hotels, those cutoff dates to reserve your rooms through our hotel blocks are ranging from March 14th, which is 2 days from now, through the 21st. From a conversation that I had today with our partners at 288 Travel, that most of the hotels reservation cutoff dates are on the 21st. So please be sure to get those rooms reserved as soon as possible if you haven't done so already. Similar to that, on the adult weekend, the cutoff dates range from the 21st to the 28th, but most cut off on March 28th. Go to the next slide, or actually pull up the form that's in that link as well. All right, so as you can see here, this is our Nationals travel information form. On top of the form, those two orange buttons can direct you to our hotel reservation pages. Again, per state of play protocols that are listed above, you must reserve hotel rooms within the hotel blocks that are created specifically for this tournament, and those can all be found in those links. If you have any accessibility needs, like ADA room needs or any rooming list requirements that you want to block all the rooms together, and you're not really able to figure that out through the website, I highly suggest you use the customer service information that's available on those individual hotel websites. So feel free to go explore that on your own. But moving down to the form itself, so the top is just basic, main contact information of the person submitting. So whether that's a team rep, an athlete, or a parent, that can all go in at the top. And then as you get down to the form, you can fill out the hotel information in this space. Those are the main pieces of information that we're looking for your team and team members. And then on the little side on the right, you can see Brandon just press the plus sign, and that's how you add team members. That's one way to do it, especially if you have different confirmation numbers and people staying at different hotels. It's important to outline them individually. If you are someone like a team rep or a coach that's reserved an entire block for your team, and you have one confirmation number or a list of confirmation numbers, if you want to just put team name and the team member name, and then hotel name and confirmation number, and then kind of number of guests, and just kind of replicate that down the line, and not put in all the team member names, that's okay too. The important thing is capturing the team name, what hotel you're staying in, the confirmation number or numbers that are associated with your room reservations, and then the number of guests or total number of rooms that you have. And that's just making sure that we are accounting for all of the reservations that are made in association with a tournament. So, that's where, it might be more beneficial to get it fully as one team, especially if you've done the booking as the team rep or coach all together. But then otherwise, if it's individuals booking their own rooms, then you can direct them to fill out this piece of the form completely with that information. And then after you finish that, you go down, and if you're driving, then you're basically done. You hit submit, that sends me an email. I basically respond to you saying I received it. And then if I have any questions or need any clarification, I'll ask of that. And then we can go from there. If you're flying, then you click flying on that little drop down, and it populates additional parts of the form where you fill out your flight itinerary. And this is really, really important. We've been doing a lot of work with our local airport, Richmond International Airport, with their staff, with the TSA security staff, and also airline managers of the major airlines that fly in and out of Richmond International Airport. And all of them have been very, very supportive of making this experience a memorable one in terms of all positive experiences. Uneventful could even be great, because it means nothing really happened that made you feel any type of way about your experience. So what's important about us being able to achieve that based on those conversations is understanding the volume of air travel that's coming in and out of Richmond on the arrival and departure dates. So it's important for you guys to fill out this form accurately as much as possible, and with as much detail as possible. So different from the hotel form, we do need this broken down by team member, and that's players and staff that are on your flight or flights. So to begin, similar to the hotel form, all of these sections will have addition or subtraction buttons, so that you can add individuals that are part of your team flying, and include information specific to them. So at the top for the travel information, you add the team member name. That could be coaches, team reps, any kind of staff, and then also players. Put in their name. In the next column, you do what assistive device do they use for everyday mobility, whether it's a manual chair, whether it's crutches, a prosthetic leg, none at all. All that can be put in there. How many chairs are you traveling with? If you're an everyday wheelchair user and use a wheelchair to get around on a daily basis, and we'll be using one to get to the airport and to the gate and off the airplane and away from the gate, that does count as one. And then if you're also traveling with a sports chair for that athlete on the flight, that counts as the second chair. So that's just further information about how you fill that out. And then we also want to know if the athlete and or staff member requires an aisle chair to get on and off the plane. And it's just simple yes or no. So please be sure to fill out this for every individual that's flying um, on your flight, especially the ones that use mobility devices like wheelchairs, crutches, what have you. It's really important to understand the volume of chairs and equipment that are going to be on these individual flights. And the earlier that we can get this information to the airlines, the better that they can understand and prepare as much as possible for that volume of chairs, and potentially even switch the airplane to a larger airplane to accommodate any of the planes that have a larger volume of chairs. Moving down to flight information, um, if everyone is on the exact same flight and you've completed the above form that is that identifies every single individual's information, if everyone's on the same arrival and or departure flight, you're more than welcome to just put the team name and full name and then fill out the rest just once instead of for every single athlete. It's important that if there are any variations in arrival flights and or departure flights, to then identify who is on which flight. And so that's the case where you would go individual by individual and replicate that flight information across the board. Just like the other sections, to add people, you just click the plus button and add as many as you need to fill out for people that are flying on your team. Again, very, very important to get this in as early as possible. So if you've already booked your flights and you have not filled out this portion of the form and submitted it to us, please do so as soon as possible. Again, the deadline for this form is Friday. If you feel like there is a need for an extension on that deadline, please don't just ghost me. Please let me know that you plan on submitting it. You just need to get the information finalized and flights confirmed and hotels reserved. That's totally okay, but I encourage you to do it sooner than later. Do we need to include family members that are flying with the athletes? If they don't really have any, you know, assistive like technology like chairs or anything like that personally themselves, then I don't think it's super important that any family members are included in this because that could get pretty arduous. I would focus primarily on staff and players. Definitely a good question, but I would focus your time on staff and players. Thanks, Corin. So that pretty much covers the form, and that gives you a detailed visual of what that looks like. Again, it's important to capture everyone at once if you can. I know some teams are having people reserve their flights at different times. If you can hold off until you have everyone to submit, that would be great. But whatever you have by Friday, please submit it, and then we'll take whatever we can get as soon as we can after that deadline. But a lot of the upcoming information that we're going to cover in this presentation is impacted by having that information, and there will be a deadline to where if you don't submit it by a certain time, then you will not be able to access certain parts of the operation and services that we're providing because we didn't have your information in time or at all. So it's very important to submit that information if you're flying. All right, we can move forward. So now we're going to get into the airport operations plan. It's been a labor of love through meetings and conversations with the airport staff and the airlines, and just thinking of ways to get creative to make everyone's experience efficient as possible from arrivals to departures, and also a new unique experience that may not have had at other tournaments or other experiences like the national championship. So again, all of this is specific to those that are flying in and out of Richmond International Airport. Those of you who are flying into other airports like Dulles up in DC or Norfolk, anything outside of Richmond, this really doesn't pertain to you. However, I still highly encourage you to submit your information, even if you are flying in or out of somewhere different than Richmond, because we are going to pass that along to our airport contacts and airline contacts, and they have already stated that they will share that with their counterparts that are based at those other airports that you are flying in and out of. And that information can be helpful for the airlines to know and have that expectation of who all is flying in and out of their airport and what airline they're on and how many chairs. All of that is helpful information in advance so they can plan accordingly. So if you're not flying in or out of Richmond, it's still good to have your information, but the following slides and information don't really apply to you. Next slide. Okay, arrivals. And you'll see the note, this process that we're going through only applies to Thursday arrivals. So if you're arriving on any day other than Thursday, April 4th or Thursday, April 11th, this process will really not apply to you based on how we have set up operations for the event and with the different partners that are involved. So say you've just arrived at the gate on your aircraft and you've landed at Richmond International Airport. You will get off the flight per usual. But what we've have planned is for airline staff who are unloading the plane to take sports chairs specifically directly down from the aircraft to baggage claim upon your arrival at the airport. So you will not see your sports chair come back to the gate, and you will not have to transport it down from the gate through security, down the elevator to baggage claim, all that. It will already be down there. When they get it to baggage claim, it will come through the oversized luggage openings that are adjacent to the traditional baggage carousels that you see. And our volunteers will receive them and stage them in the carpeted area on the far right side of the baggage claim level. And they'll be organized by arrival airline for ease of locating your chair. So if you arrived on an American Airlines flight, it will be in a section of that chair staging area that's specific to American Airlines flights. And so that's kind of the first step of the process. When you exit your gate, you'll you'll take out your carry-on luggage. You'll get into your everyday chair that's brought back up to the kind of jet bridge. And then we'll go up to the gate and exit through the security gates following the signage. And we'll have volunteers placed right outside of security as well that will guide you towards the baggage claim level. Elevators are situated to the left and right at the top of the incline walkway, just beyond the escalators that lead down to baggage claim. And as a disclaimer, we were at the airport yesterday and shot a quick video of this process, kind of from the elevators down. And the details that I described in the next slide will also be featured in the video. So those will be some visual aids for you to reference back to these bullet points. Next slide. Okay, once down to the baggage claim level, all rostered NWBA players and staff should plan to check in at the Welcome Center desk, and this is located at the middle of the baggage claim level. So if you go down the escalators, you run right into it. And this is actually operated by our friends at Richmond Region Tourism, who Gerald, who you met earlier in the presentation, works for. They've given us permission to staff this desk with our staff and volunteers and dress it up with Allianz partners sponsored stuff. And they'll have a welcome center table and some staff and volunteers there to kind of welcome everyone to Richmond that are arriving on those days, on those Thursdays. At this desk, players and staff that flew in will check in with our staff at that desk. So that's the first step that you do once you come down the elevators or down the escalator. You go directly to the desk and check in. Our staff will check you in as arrived on our sheet, on our master itinerary of flights, and direct you to where you'll retrieve your sports chair at the staging area. So if you're coming down and you're facing that welcome desk head on, this chair staging area will be down to your right on the far right side in the carpeted area labeled by airline. Once you go down and get your sports chairs, you will then come back to the desk where you'll receive a custom Allianz Partners luggage tag and a specifically colored wristband that will be used for identifying your chair with your contact information, departure flight information. Before I go on, Mike Godsey had a question here. How do we make sure airlines don't transport everyday chair to the baggage claim area? Are the tagging colors different between everyday wheelchair and sports wheelchair? Also, know some athletes only bring a sports chair. Um, yeah, definitely understand that question and appreciate that question, Mike. We have uh, provided plenty of visual aid to the airlines that differentiate the chairs from a sports chair and a day chair. And so those staff members of the airlines that are unloading the aircrafts will be prompted on the differences. I do know that that question or that statement around some athletes utilizing their sports chair for as a mobility aid to and from the gate to baggage claim is a thing. And so that's something that I will take back to our conversations on Thursdays with the airlines to reiterate. And there's likely going to be some sort of distinction that needs to be made potentially by the athlete who needs that chair for mobility, um, or something of that nature to make sure that it arrives back up to um, the jet bridge for that athlete to utilize to get to baggage claim from their gate. It's definitely a wrinkle in the process, but I certainly understand and appreciate that question, and I think that's something that we're going to need to specifically address in the next meeting to see a, a a reliable solution to make sure that the distinction is made between chairs, and also if someone uses a sports chair for their mobility aid, if they aren't bringing like crutches or an everyday chair um, along with them, and are relying on that sports chair to get from the gate to baggage claim, then we'll do our best to make sure that happens. One thing that could potentially happen for those specific individuals is they're provided with the airline push chair to get down to baggage claim where their chair is, or we can try to get their chair back up to them if for some reason it didn't arrive at the gate. But again, it's something that we'll address in our next meeting, and be sure to um, follow up with you guys once we do identify that process. And to clarify, a lot of this is living and breathing. We do have the overview of the process solidified, but there are little wrinkles, as you guys know, with our sport and with our athlete population and personal preferences that we want to acknowledge and try to address as best as possible. Um, the other question, and I'm going to answer this one, and then I'm going to keep going and answer questions towards the end. Robert asked if some of our team is arriving on Wednesday and the rest Thursday. Will that be an issue? Um, it's not an issue. I think just those that are arriving on Wednesday won't be able to um, kind of go through this process. So you'll likely just address it as you normally would without some of this planning ahead of time involved. So you'll likely, if you gate check all the way through, you'll receive your chair upon arrival. If you check your chair, and I'm talking about the sports chair here specifically. If you check your chair, then it'll arrive how it traditionally does when you check it all the way through, likely down at the baggage claim area. I will bring that up to our airline and airport partners because I know that TSA and all of them are talking about this on a consistent basis, and it'll be the day before we're about to execute this plan. So we want to make sure that we know exactly what their expectation is on the day before or the day after Sunday on departures, to make sure there isn't any miscommunication to you guys or to them. So I'll certainly check in on that, but as of right now, I would expect that any Wednesday arrivals will kind of be on their own. There won't be any welcome volunteers. There won't be any sort of anything like what we're going to have at the airport on Thursday. However, I want to make sure that if you're gate checking, the expectation is that the airline staff will bring it up to the gate once you arrive in Richmond. So hopefully that helps answer your question, but certainly we'll be addressing that in our next meeting to make sure everyone is kind of aligned and that's communicated to you guys. Moving forward, I think the last thing I addressed was that once you go, after you checked in and we check you off as arrived, you're going to go down and find your sports chair at the labeled airline sort of chair staging area. what you're going to do is bring it back because that's where we'll have the custom Allianz Partners luggage tags and color wristbands that are extremely important for the departure process, because those are what will be used to identify your chairs, identify your departing airline. So that color wristband will correspond with the airline, and they'll have a specific color for them. So that will help us identify what airline your chair belongs on when they return on Sunday. And then on the luggage tag will be your name, your team name, your contact information. So basically phone number and email. And then also your departure airline and flight number. So those are the key pieces of information that you will fill out as you receive those luggage tags around that welcome center desk. And then we and our volunteers will help you affix those two pieces on to your sports chair. It'll likely go on the back bar or just anywhere else that it is easily accessible, but also not impeding upon your sports performance throughout the weekend. And then for those of you who may worry about those falling off or being lost between Thursday and Sunday, don't worry, that will be addressed in the coming slides. And then after that, you will then take your chair back to the staging area once you have those attached to your chair, where that will be transferred onto Amazon vehicles for transportation from the airport over to the tournament location, the Henrico Sports and Event Center, and placed in your team's chair storage location for you. So when you show up for check-in, team practice on Thursday, or if your first time showing up to the venue is on Friday for your first game, they're going to be in your chair storage area for you. So we can move to the next slide. So this is the video that kind of showcases the arrival process and kind of where you're going to go. Before you play the video, this is kind of up near where the elevators are located. If you see that glass area that has a little bit of a drop off, that's kind of the escalator area where you could take the escalators directly down to baggage claim as you come up the incline from the security that you exit after you get off your gate. Otherwise, if you need the elevators, you come around that glass area, and the elevators will be located on either side on the wall nearest the restrooms, kind of at the top of the incline, and it's right before you get to the ticketing area for the different airlines for departing flights. That's where the elevators are located. And so now you can play the video, and it kind of gives you a visual aid of that arrival process. So you can see here, elevator is on the left side that Erica, our intern and D2 player, is entering. She's going to take that down to the baggage claim level, which is just one floor down, and exit out and head straight towards the welcome desk where the check-in is located. And so that's the first step in that process. You check in there and you go over to that area where your chair is stored, get your chair and come back to the desk. Sorry if it's a little choppy. It is a bit of a ways, but I promise you this process is certainly worth it, so you don't have to deal with your chair transportation. Then you come and you'll check in with Abby, one of our staff members who will be there on Thursdays and Sundays. You'll get your luggage tag and the specific color wristband that will go on your back bar. And also, like I talked about before, you will fill out your entire luggage tag on site before you take it back over to the staging area before it gets on an Amazon truck, because we want to make sure all of that is addressed and completed before you leave the airport. So that's the end of the video. However, you are responsible for pushing it back over to that chair staging area, and that's where volunteers will load the chairs onto Amazon trucks throughout the day to take over to the tournament venue. Again, important notes on arrivals. Any teams that arrive on a day other than Thursday, April 4th or 11th will not go through this process. Any teams that arrive later than 9 p.m. on either Thursday, the 4th or the 11th, will not go through this process. This is just because we can't expect any of our staff or volunteers or airlines to support this, much of a process after that time. So similar to Rob's question about arriving on a day other than Thursday, you'll kind of go through the process as you traditionally would, based on how you are coming into Richmond. Um, None of this is applicable to any arrivals at other airports outside of the Richmond International Airport. But like I said before, we're planning on sharing flight itinerary information with our airport and airline contacts, so that they're aware of the volume of chairs and aisle chair needs per flight, in hopes that that helps improve and proactively gets those airlines ready for your team's departures and arrivals from those different airports. Okay, now as we get into the departure process, this particular slide pertains to what you need to do before you leave the tournament venue for the last time. When your team has played their last game of the tournament weekend, players and staff who are using the equipment transportation must take their chairs to the designated chair drop-off location, or chair pickup location located at the back left corner of the venue by the roll-up door. After this slide, we'll have a kind of a visual representation of the venue and the layout and where that would be. This is important because we need to. This is your small piece of the process to ensure that your chairs are positioned in the right place, where we know that they need to go on the Amazon trucks back to the airport. All players should double check that their custom luggage tag and color wristbands are fastened to their sports chair at this time. As we know, it could fall off, it could be damaged, it could be smeared. You could have never put it on, you could have taken it off between Thursday arrivals and Sunday departures. So this is kind of like our fail safe as you drop it off in that dedicated area between you and our staff person or volunteer that are located back there on Sunday morning throughout the day on Sunday. We want to make sure that that's double checked before you leave your chair at that area. So please make sure that that's permeated throughout your team if you're utilizing this process. Like I said, the staff or volunteer will be there at that location to confirm the chairs have been dropped off to be picked up by Amazon, and extra luggage tags and color wristbands for each airline will be there in the event that someone misplaces their sorry for misspelling theirs, between Thursday and Sunday. Next slide. And to further identify that location, so the back left corner, right beyond court 1, is where there is a garage roll-up door, where we will be instructing the Amazon trucks to drop off and pick up equipment on those Thursdays and Sundays. This will also be the same designated area for any teams that have large vehicles or trailers that are dropping off equipment on Thursday or picking up on Sunday after your games are over. This is all weather dependent with that location, because that door enters directly into the venue, which is near court 1. So in the event that there is like bad weather, essentially, there's a back west entrance that Brandon is kind of highlighting right there. It's between court 7 and 9 on the backside. That is likely where we will pivot to if there is inclement weather on either of those days, because there's just a level of separation between the outside world where the elements are and the physical court surface, where we can kind of dry stuff off and sort of stage it if we're having any sort of backup. That's kind of the weather backup plan in case it's raining. It's April in Virginia, so hopefully it's 75 and sunny and no rain, but there very well could be rain. So that's kind of our backup plan, and we will communicate that accordingly, sort of as we get closer to the weekend and throughout the weekend. So please be sure, as you guys are here on site, especially you team reps and coaches who are the main point of contacts for your teams, please keep an eye out on your emails for any important updates that may impact, where that location may be, or a specific shuttle schedule for the equipment, and all other information related to the tournament. Next slide. Now we get to the airport portion of departures. So Amazon will deliver the sports chairs to the airport baggage claim level on Sunday in waves based on number of chairs that are ready to go and their flight departure time. So those that are on flights that are going to be leaving earlier in the afternoon or earlier in the evening will likely be prioritized just because they need to get there and get checked and screened and loaded onto the aircrafts sooner than others. So that's kind of how that will be handled in terms of priority. Um, Sportable staff member and volunteers will be on site at the airport to receive the chairs and place them in the chair staging area labeled by airline and color using the luggage tags and color wristbands. So again, further importance of making sure that those are on there before they're loaded up on Sunday onto the Amazon trucks. This will likely be in the same area where they're staged when they arrive on Thursdays. We will then communicate once the chairs are received with airline staff to let them know that specific chairs that are belonging on their flights have arrived and are ready to be taken over into the airline's possession and then taken over to the specific security screening area. So to further highlight this last bullet point, we will communicate with the airline staff when chairs for their flights arrive, and then they will be prompted to check in the chairs for the flights using the contact and flight information that has been provided by the athlete on the custom luggage tag. They will also have access to our master flight itinerary matrix to reference back and forth during this process. Next slide. Some airlines have additional steps during the check-in process for wheelchairs and mobility devices. We're working with them to be able to get you all that information as soon as possible in advance, so you do not have to be present for the check-in process of your sports chairs. One example is with Delta. They have a mobility device handling form for your wheelchairs, whether that's your day chair and or your sports chair. And they usually have people fill this out at the ticketing counter and or the gate if you're gate checking. What they have expressed to us in order to adhere to our operations plan and process is to send this out to you guys and teams that are using Delta for your arrivals and or departures and submitting that in advance to kind of coexist with your flight itinerary. So that again, the whole idea of this is that once you arrive to the airport, you as teams and individuals who have sports chairs don't need to worry about your sports chair. You will just go directly to your ticket counter if you need to get, if you need to check in, or if you've already checked in on your mobile app and you just go directly to TSA security checkpoint to begin the process of getting to your gate. That's kind of the whole idea is just kind of minimizing the amount of equipment that you have to take through security into the gate, minimizing the amount of time that it takes. And we also know how long those of you who've traveled with the big team or have multiple teams on the same flight, if you have all of your day chairs and sports chairs at the gate, it takes quite a bit to get out of there and trying to get out on time for your departure time. And if you have a connecting flight and your connection or layover is not very long, you're just kind of eating into that time and running the risk of missing your connection flight. So all this process is really designed to make things convenient for you and also assist the airlines and the airport by being more efficient in the process to get your stuff loaded onto the airplanes and get you guys off the ground as soon as possible or as close to your departure time as possible. So with this process, you will not need to do anything with your sports chair as that will be taken care of by the airline staff. Next slide. One piece that was brought to my attention today through communication with one of the team reps that flies often with their team is that through the check-in process for each airline is the tagging process of chairs. And that's sort of identifying the passenger's preference of having that specific chair or piece of equipment brought back to the gate at each segment of the flight, at the final destination gate of your flight, or just all the way at baggage claim at final destination. And so this is extremely key in our conversations with our local airport and airlines and will be addressed in our next meeting this Thursday, because this specific thing has not been addressed to my knowledge yet. And I think this really goes a long way in terms of your peace of mind of understanding how you want your chair to be handled throughout the departure process from when you leave Richmond International Airport until you get to your final destination. So ideally on those luggage tags, we will also want you to add a section as to which your preference would be of these three options. So if you want your sports chair to show up at the gate um, at your connection, which would be, each segment, then you'll identify that some sort of identifying way that we come up with, whether it's acronyms or sticker colors or something that will allow the airline staff who are checking in your chair down at the baggage claim level before it goes through the dedicated TSA screening process that's down there. It allows them to say, oh, that person wants their chair to be with them at the gate of each segment, so the connecting gate and also the final destination gate. Then they use that information to relay that onto their airline's specific tag. And we know, as some of you likely know as well, each airline has a different tag that's unique to their airline. And so that luggage tag is kind of the key for ensuring that all that information is available to these individuals to make sure that they handle your chairs appropriately and how you want them handled on your departure. And so you have those three options. But again, this is something that we're still working through. I'll likely confirm this process and have specific information on how we will label each individual preference here. But just know that this is all work in progress, and it's in an effort to make your experience as smooth as possible, and to make this efficient for the airport and airlines, while also keeping all of your considerations and preferences in mind. So with that, I think we can go to the next slide. So for departures related to TSA and going through security, we had a good meeting at the airport with one of the TSA managers at Richmond International Airport yesterday. And so this is specific information based on what he's relayed to us. So all passengers who use a wheelchair for daily mobility should plan to use the TSA priority lanes located on the far side of each terminal or concourse. We just have two, A and B at Richmond. So when you get to those concourses, you'll see a priority lane, and if you're a wheelchair user, that's the one that you want to go down. It's going to be prepared for this event, and the security staff will be bulked up on those days to make sure people are getting through quickly and efficiently. Any passengers that are accompanying wheelchair users, like a spouse, a parent, a guardian, siblings, caregiver, etc., can also go through the priority lane with that passenger who is a wheelchair user. They also recommended that any ambulatory passengers, especially those with prosthetics, should go through the regular TSA security lane, which has the full body scanner, the one you stand in and put your hands above your head. The impotence of that, the specifics around that is because the priority lane only has a metal detector. And so if you're wearing a prosthetic and the metal detector goes off, it initiates to security that a full body search of that individual by TSA security offers is warranted. And so if you'd rather not experience that process, it's recommended that you go through the regular line, whereas the full body scan has capabilities to determine whether, your prosthetic is good to go or not. They may just, do a quick swab or scan of your prosthetic itself and in the areas around it, but will not, set off any warnings like a metal detector might, that per the policies and procedures of TSA sort of initiates that full body search. So those are just feedback that we got from our TSA contact at the airport to pass along to you guys, to note that wheelchair users don't have to go through that regular line as well, and should direct themselves and anyone traveling with them that aren't wearing a prosthetic or anything metal on them to go through the priority lane for an easier and smoother setup process to get through security. And there's a quick video that showcases those specific priority lane areas at the Richmond Airport in the next slide, I believe. So this is Concourse B. You'll see Erica, our star actor in this, is going, and she's going to specifically go towards the priority lane for Concourse B, which will be on your far right up against the wall. See the priority lane labeling there. And we also plan to have additional signage that's specific to our event that is really like guiding people to that specific area. And this is the same thing, but on the other side with Concourse A and where that priority lane is located for that concourse and flights going out of those gates. And that's it for that video. So we can go to the next slide. Not sure. Okay, you got it. So important need to knows about this entire process for arrivals and departures. If you are flying into or out of an airport other than RIC, none of this applies to you. But again, like I've stated multiple times throughout this webinar, please submit your itineraries anyways. We'll be sure to share that with the airlines, and they will share it with their counterparts that are based at the other airports so that they are aware of the volume of chairs and individuals that are flying in for this event and can be proactive in whatever ways possible to help make sure your experience is a smooth and uneventful one. Those of you who are arriving and departing on days of the week other than Thursday, April 4th or 11th, and Sunday, April 7th or 14th, will not go through this process. So you will handle your preferences on gate checking or standard checking your sports chairs at your preference, and it will be handled as such. Another thing to reiterate, no player or team is required to participate in this process. If you have a strong preference to keep your sports chairs with you and gate check it starting at your departure flight from RIC, you are more than welcome to do this. It's not a requirement, it's just our effort to make things easier on you and more efficient and time effective for the airlines and the airport to make sure that you get out on time, you make your connecting flights on time, and all of that stuff that we know are at risk with large volumes of wheelchairs being on same flights. But again, to reiterate, you're not required to participate in this process. However, that does result in you not necessarily being able to access other aspects of this process. So next bullet point, if you're not participating in this process, you're responsible for transporting your own equipment from the airport to Henrico Sports and Event Center upon your arrival, and from the Sports and Event Center tournament venue to the airport for your departure flight. So even if you're coming in on the 4th or the 11th and departing on the 7th or the 14th, but you're choosing not to participate in this process, your stuff will not be eligible to be transported with the Amazon equipment. And that's just to keep things separate and try not to confuse anything, because it is a very complex process that follows a specific setup of steps and information. And if any chairs kind of get mixed in between that are not participating in that process, it just will really confuse the process. So if you're adamant about gate checking and your chair being with you every step of the way, then you're kind of on your own in this process. And to get a little bit more into the weeds with the Amazon equipment transportation, huge shout out to Amazon for stepping up and offering this service as part of the weekend. It was an idea that I had, and clearly we've thought a lot through it and are incorporating it as part of the sort of airport and arrivals and departure process. But specific information around that, it will only operate on the following days and times. And it aligns specifically with those arrival days and departure days that I identified, which are Thursday, April 4th and 11th. And it will operate from around 10 a.m. Or after the earliest arrival flight. If there are any flights that arrive at like 4 a.m., like realistically, we're not going to be accommodating any equipment transportation with those flights. It's just we're not planning to have people with the airport staff, airline staff, or volunteers or staff of ours there at that time. Based on what we know of arrival times generally to Richmond International Airport, it's probably not coming in any earlier than 9 or 10 a.m. So as of now, we're estimating that 10 a.m. will be kind of when the shuttles start for those arrivals of equipment going from the airport to the venue, and it will last through approximately 9 p.m. Again, we're not expecting our volunteers or staff to stay at the airport later than that, and not expecting Amazon drivers or airport staff or airline staff to handle this process after 9 p.m. So if you're arriving after 9 p.m. On Thursdays, April 4th or 11th, you will fall outside of this window and will be required to go through the process and transport your equipment yourselves. Similar to that on the departures on the 7th and 14th of April, we'll be running it from 10 a.m. So equipment leaving the Sports and Events Center and going to the airport from 10 a.m. However, we know that some teams may finish games all on Saturday or may not have any games on Sunday. So if you are already done and you've gone, just make sure on Sunday morning, if you're already done, you move your chairs over to that chair pickup location in the back left corner and make sure all of your things are tagged if you want it to make it onto the Amazon equipment transportation. But thinking, for most of the teams, you'll either, some will finish by 10 a.m. after those 8 a.m. games are done. And then it will run basically until after the championship games are done and other last games that also are concluding around the time of those final championship games that tip off at 2 p.m. So it kind of just runs until the event is done. Our games are done on those Sundays. And again, we'll be prioritizing the ones that have earlier departure times throughout the day on that process. Teams that have an arrival and or departure date on any other day other than these Thursdays or Sundays will not be eligible for equipment transportation, like we stated before. Only players and teams that are participating in the airport operation plan system detailed earlier in this presentation will be eligible for the Amazon equipment transportation. So if you're not participating in that sort of process that we outlined before, which is your choice, then your equipment is not eligible for the equipment transportation, and you're going to be responsible for transporting it to and from the airport for your arrival and departure flights. Let's click on the next slide. I see there's a question there, but I want to get through this before. Oh, there's no next slide. So I'm happy to take questions now, whether they're in the chat or popping off of audio or video. To address the Chicago Hornet question, are there any hotel shuttle options, or should we reach out to specific hotels? If you're referring to like transporting people, I'm not personally aware. I haven't really done that research specifically. So I would recommend reaching out to the specific hotel that you're booked at or going to book at if you're still looking to inquire about that. But just based on this event in years past and what we're kind of focusing on, we're not really focusing on any person, people transportation, and just the equipment of those participating in that process. Any other questions? Feel free to put them in the chat or come off of mute and chime in. I need feedback. It's our first time doing this and it's the first year of it. So, really, really hopeful and really I'm optimistic that you guys will buy into that process. I do think that, looking at how many teams are, it's not a lot, but there are more than just a tiny few that are flying in days outside of those Thursdays and Sundays and leaving on different days that we may try in the future to accommodate more than just those days. But based on, typical arrivals and departures, we focused on those Thursdays and Sundays. Appreciate the feedback in the comments from y'all. And yes, the slides will be available and the recording will be available too. So just be on the lookout for that to come from the NWBA, and likely via email through me, if you've gotten my recent emails as well. Yeah, good to see you.
Hey, I just wanted to thank you, Forrest. Forrest and I have been texting and chatting about this. The fact that you're getting airlines and airports to talk to you in advance is fantastic. So well done on that. I'm sure we all appreciate that. And I asked a few of my major questions in advance, but I have talked to some of my athletes a little bit about it. And, the biggest concern that they had was being separated from their sports chair at any portion of the check-in, because we all know that airlines can make lots of excuses, and we always are required to check in somewhere and swear that this is our chair and that this is a damage that has or hasn't been done to it. So I was kind of curious too about that, because we all know that one of the processes is this dent, was this here, are you going to sign off on it, right? So maybe that's already been talked about, but that's probably something that might come up a little bit, just as a heads up of, what was this damage here beforehand? Well, I don't know. You guys took it from me from the Amazon truck. So that was a concern that some people had. Not that I think it's going to be a biggie. And then also just the whole getting out in time. We have booked our flights already, and of course we hope we're going to make the national championship game. But we're coming from Arizona, and we don't have a lot of choice on a lot of the flights to get out. So will you be prioritizing people based on their first flights and what have you? Like who's going off?
Yeah, definitely so. And I definitely alluded to that in the conversation. And I think, the biggest piece, and it's kind of a reciprocal process, and all of this is making sure that all the chairs are identified appropriately by team name, person name, contact information, and especially that departure flight, airline and flight number, because once that's looked at by the person who's going to be kind of directing the loading of the Amazon trucks back in that corner, they can compare that to the matrix, and they'll already have the matrix of all the itineraries. And we'll probably coordinate that once we have everything in by flight departure time, starting with the earliest one, and just kind of being like, and there'll probably be some runners, volunteers that are not affixed to that corner that we're communicating with to try and find any chairs that we don't have yet, from those earlier flights that we know need to be on the Amazon truck. So definitely, keeping all of that in mind, and certainly, I'm learning a ton about this process as someone who's only flown a couple times with our Sportable teams in the past, and things are ever changing given the nature of damages and things being done and lost and to wheelchairs and other devices. So, we're certainly, trying to cover all of our bases while understanding that there are different preferences and different processes. I highlighted the Delta process, which is, they take pictures of it at every step of the way, and they fill out the form before and after, and trying to, reduce the time that takes and the physical presence being needed at that check-in process that we have. Like, they've went through the trouble to get, airline staff, extra staff, to be positioned down at the baggage claim area to receive that equipment once it's made it to their designated, labeled area, and then they take it to, they check it in down there, and go through that process. But figuring out if it's required, to have the owner of that chair to comment and sign off on the final status of it will be something that I address on Thursday at our next meeting, because I think, some of them were maybe willing to, see beyond that process for the specific event to help align with all the airlines in the process that we're looking at. But I'm not sure how that makes, the athletes feel if it's not accounted for and something does happen and that process wasn't met by the airlines or what they traditionally do. Then they even more so, might say that, well, we didn't go through the process. So, so I definitely think there's a happy medium there, and we've been able to find it a lot of the way throughout our conversations. But certainly want to talk more about that check-in process across the board for those departures, because one, you brought up the luggage tag, the check, like the chair tags that differ from airline to airline. And then two, there's a preference for athletes, and I think there's an easy way for us to identify that on those luggage tags by the preference, so that that can be transferred over to the tag that the airline staff are going to put on anyways when they check the chairs in. Um, but are they going to need to be, are the athletes going to need to be there? And that's the difficult part, because if you guys aren't transporting the chairs there, and we're trying to be as quick as possible getting them off the Amazon trucks and staged and ready to be on your aircrafts, they might have already been checked, by the time that you get to the airport, or what have you. So I think I'm going to talk more through that, and ultimately tweak, the slideshow, or send out a specific video, or something that where I talk through the final process of what we've come up with. But I really appreciate your feedback, me and any others that have chimed in here, to help solidify this, because we want it to be as successful as humanly possible, even though it is our first time kind of going through it. And the importance for sure is like the buy-in. You've got to opt into this process, and we need to know that you're opting into this process. We also need to know if you're opting out of this process. If you're not opting out, then we don't have to account for your chairs being transported by Amazon, which affects the number of trucks we need. So making sure that we are aware of your participation and commitment to participating in the process is extremely important in the overall logistics and planning for not only myself, but the parties that are the stakeholders that are involved, from the airport to the airlines to the Amazon, folks that are they're going above and beyond to participate and help in this process. So, yeah, we're really doing a lot that we can to make sure everything is thought through as much as possible. See, Paulette asked, not sure who Matt is, but is this the first time the process is being implemented? I appreciate your sentiment for this event. I definitely believe so, especially in the way that this is being done. I know other regional tournaments have been able to support athlete and or equipment transportation with their own vehicles and whatnot. It's much of a smaller scale. So Chicago Hornet, our departure is 8. Are we still able to send chair via Amazon early? Absolutely. As soon as, obviously yours might not be prioritized, but it's certainly, definitely we're going to get it out of the venue as early as possible to make sure it can go through that checking in and screening process and being prepared for your flight departure sooner than later. So yeah, certainly want to keep that responsibility off your hands so that you don't have to worry about it, and you can kind of do what you want to do. Whether it's going to hang out somewhere before you go to the airport or going to the airport early. Mia had a question, if you're arriving a day early, but you're participating if you're leaving on the departure day. I'm not 100% sure on that yet. I think it's certainly possible if we know that in advance. Like if you're saying like you have people that aren't arriving on the Thursday but are departing on the Sunday and want to have access to this program, I would say yes. The important piece is that you're going to have to check in with tournament staff, and it'll likely be someone that we identify as the point of contact for this entire operation, or myself. Communicate with me and I can get you right in touch with the right people. The important thing will be getting your custom luggage tag, the airline wristband color that associates with your departing airline, and all of that information filled out for all those departing flights that want to participate on those departure days with the Amazon equipment shuttle. I think it's certainly something we can accommodate, but we need to know that in advance and try to get those tags and stuff to you probably, whether it's at Thursday check-in at the venue or sometime early between Friday and Sunday, so that they're ready to kind of be identified and added to that equipment pickup location on Sunday. But I certainly think that's possible and something we can accommodate. Any other questions or comments, feedback? If
Of
not,
course.
it's very satisfying.
No, I think you've left the comment section. I just want a quick pause and say thank you to you, Forrest, and all the partners helping you, but namely you in front of this group. I know a few of them chimed in under the comment section. Truly appreciate the white glove service you're trying to provide our members when they arrive in Richmond, and really when they first, roll onto the ground in Richmond and they have an experience like no other at our national tournament. So honestly, thank you so much in advance. I know this is a heavy, heavy lift. And so, and I was going to answer Paulette's question of like unprecedented. I don't think anyone would be willing to take on this scale of event with 52 junior teams and 48 adult teams in this type of service. And just definitely applaud Forrest for presenting it. So outstanding for sure. So
I appreciate that. Thank you. And thanks everyone for tuning in, and for those of you who kind of go through this and listen, and those of you who aren't tuning in live, please reach out with thoughts and feedback and questions sooner than later, so that they can be addressed. But hopefully, similar to those on the call, a lot of them were answered through the presentation and through answering the questions. So thank you guys.
Forrest, buddy, thank you so much for everything, putting all this together, and really looking forward to being in Richmond.
Thanks, buddy. Shameless plug: get those forms in by Friday or earlier. And any questions, but also submit your Road to Richmond content show. Make sure you save the date for our selection show, where you find out your matchups and your final seeds for your respective division tournaments on March 25th at 7 p.m. Eastern, live on richmond.com. And if you can get your content into us by next Monday, I believe the 18th, that's the deadline we've established. That gives you a better chance to have some additional content featured for your team when your team's announced. We're trying to replicate as much of March Madness and the NCAA, structure as possible, and really, really are excited for that. And working with our partners at Richmond Times-Dispatch to produce and execute it, and are really, really pumped for that, interesting add to the tournament weekend and experience. And encourage you all to tune in live. I heard from the Mary Free Bed Junior Pacers that they have a prep and varsity watch party scheduled that they're hosting, and really, really, hope all of you guys are doing something similar, or at least tuning in from home to really enjoy that new experience as part of the tournament weekend. And so thanks to those of you who have submitted that information. And if you haven't yet, refer to those emails that I've sent out regarding the hotel information and other deadlines. It includes the Road to Richmond submission form for you to submit content. And please do it by individual team if you have multiple teams, because it is associated with when your specific teams are announced on the bracket. And so, yeah, that's it. That's all my shameless plugs, I think, for now. But really looking forward to everyone being in Richmond here soon, and we can't wait to have you here.
thanks again, Forrest.
Thanks, y'all. Have a good night.
Take care, guys. Thanks for joining in tonight.
Buddy, you still on?